Welcome, everyone. Good morning. I'm Fred Cole, and I'm delighted this morning to be the worship leader. One thing I've known about this community for a long time is just how gracious, caring, and generous it is. But sometimes you can forget just how gracious and generous and caring it is. Because for the past couple of weeks, Barb and I have experienced huge doses of it. And she planned to be here this morning and has decided at the last minute, she said, I just can't make it. And we're so great, both of us are so grateful for all the cards and kind words that have come our way. And the groceries. Been great. Well, she's watching us right now, and she's waving. So you wave back. Thanks again for everything. I want to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time. We are an intentional community gathered around our shared promise to support each other's individual and spiritual journeys. We don't all believe the same things in exactly the same way, but we do share the same values and the same commitment to our spiritual growth. We share the faith that our beliefs become real when we act on them to make the world a better place. And we all share the commitment to live a life grounded in this community. If you're joining us online for the first time, please fill out the visitors form. We'd love to contact you. Now I have an invitation to share with you all. Next Saturday, that's May 18th, our religious education director, Rachel Alba, and Reverend David will lead a day-long retreat on owning our religious past. This is a space for considering the gifts and challenges received from your religious past before coming to this community. It is open to all members with a special intention around serving current parents who desire to share spiritual depth with their children, but don't want their children to carry with them the challenges they received during their own upbringing. And there's another announcement to share. On Sunday, June 2nd, we will go to our summer hours, and services will begin at 10 o'clock, one service every Sunday. So it's, yeah. Yeah. There's always a debate on that topic, but just to make sure that you remember it, it's sort of like daylight savings time, as a matter of fact, is that you will start the day with a pancake breakfast. So, but that'll be at 9. And then at 10 o'clock will be our annual flower communion Sunday. And our congregational meeting will follow that day. So it's going to be a full day. And because, there'll also be a kids' congregational meeting at the same time. And this has been a year for growing and flourishing. So we'll send it off in style on June 2nd. We begin our service this morning by lighting our chalice. The chalice is the symbol of our liberal faith. In it, we find the warmth of compassion, the comfort of love, and the fire of justice. It is a lamp on our spiritual path. If you're joining us online, please get ready to light your chalice at home. Amy Self will light this morning's chalice.
Good morning. I'll begin with a personal story. 2 weeks ago, my school district had its 5th grade honor choir, a auditioned choir that's very difficult to get into for our students. And when at the students' rehearsal, I decided to go out into the hallway just to take a little bit of a break. And in the hallway, I saw Kai, who is a colleague that I deeply respect, who also happens to be a non-binary music teacher. And Kai was walking with their black, blind female student. And I looked at them with joy as they were laughing and sharing and talking. But quickly, that joy turned toward sadness and then anger. It makes me angry that 2 people who I see as creative and powerful are a part of groups that are marginalized by our laws and institutions. That not all people see and experience their strength is a tragedy for everyone. So lately I've been in touch with my anger toward violence, systemic oppression, and just the meanness in our political discourse. So, knowing me, I use music to help me heal. So there's a song that I've been listening to, a UU favorite called The Tide is Rising. And the verses are, the tide is rising, the task is mighty, this land is holy, and here's my favorite. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. Thank you for joining me. So I started off by telling a personal story. I believe that stories can change people if they provide a way for human connection, empathy, and real understanding. And especially if that connection is with someone who is different than you. And this, I believe, includes people who have different political viewpoints. We need to come out of our political silos and just talk to each other. I have a friend who is a Trump supporter, a new friend. But that is not what defines her. She has shared her vulnerabilities with me, and she has cried in my arms. I see her humanity. And I can't wait to continue to build this relationship with her. And eventually we can maybe sit down and talk about our political views. Because that conversation held in a container of mutual respect might actually maybe soften our adamant viewpoints and lead to understanding, which is ultimately what we need if we want to see real and lasting change. So there are 2 more verses to that song that offer hope. The sun is shining, and the world is ready. Can we sing The World is Ready? Here we go. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. So may we all feel ready to fight for justice and consider that part of that fight is in sharing our stories. So I light this chalice for this church that holds me, hears my stories, teaches me, and challenges me. Oops, the light just... This may take a little while. I think the wick is a little short. Oh, yeah, that's the problem. Just like this. My hands are shaking. Okay. church.
In northern Illinois, spilling into Wisconsin and Iowa and Indiana, Brood 13 is emerging. And across the south, from the Carolinas, across Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi, up through Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, southern Illinois, Brood 19 is emerging. They're periodical cicadas who spend 99% of their life underground as nymphs drinking sap from tree roots, and then emerge after 13 or 17 years of this. Emerge for less than 2 months to make that unbelievably annoying humming sound, like a high-tension power line next to your head. They emerge for less than 2 months. After 13 or 17 years underground, emerge to mate and lay eggs and then repeat the whole cycle. Dormancy is a survival strategy for extreme conditions. I heard a naturalist say that, describing this strategy to stay safe underground, to only venture up into the open where they can be eaten every 13 or 17 years, to be safe by coming up all at once in such numbers that predators can't even eat them all. Dormancy is a survival strategy for extreme conditions. We do this with ourselves too, in different ways, maybe not underground literally, but we do this with parts of ourselves. We let our hearts go dormant. We let our compassion sleep deep and long, sometimes not because we're bad people who shouldn't do that, but because sometimes that's what we need to survive. Sometimes that's what you need to do to survive extreme conditions. Sometimes things are too hard, and the way to survive is by letting a piece of yourself go dormant. It's not that that's bad. It's not that you should beat yourself up because that's what's happened. Every so often it feels like, well, I'll just be unkind to myself until I'm kinder. No, that's not how that works. It's not that you should always remain tender and vulnerable and able to engage with anyone anytime it's needed. That's not the work. The reality is sometimes extreme conditions mean that you need to protect yourself, and the work is to remember how to wake back up again, to distinguish when is the time that you need to come back above ground, that you've had enough time in safety and you're ready. Distinguishing that, practicing that, is part of what we do when we gather. This gathering that we do, this thing we're doing, is an active spiritual practice. Each week in community, we recommit to the things that are most important in our living. This serious task, done joyfully and intentionally. This is an open and an invitational practice that we do together this hour. You belong here today, even in the extreme conditions of your world, even if your heart or your spirit feels dormant. This is a gentle practice. You don't have to be or do anything other than who you are in this moment to earn the love or worthiness of this community. So here we are, slowly and together, climbing above ground.
Our shared faith calls us to bravely bear witness to the truth of the world. Sometimes this is beautiful and heartbreaking, like those of you who saw the aurora this week. Sometimes this puts us in touch with our anger and reminds us that while we have created a beautiful community, sometimes things outside these walls are really hard. And we are called to face the truth about that. So this is a song that I love to keep in my library for times when it's okay that it's just not okay. My, oh my, we must have got it wrong. Falling skies, the storm is coming strong. No one is coming out of this unscathed. Who could be ready for these war end games? My, oh my, we must have got it wrong. The world is unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling, the world is unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. Oh, oh, oh. My, oh my, we're in the final act. Can't fight the tide. The sea is turning black. No one is coming out of this unscathed. Who could be ready for these war end games? My, oh my, we must have got it wrong. The world is unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling, the world is unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. Oh, oh, such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. Oh, oh, such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. Oh, oh, such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling.
To covenant is to commit, that even if we fall short of our aspirations, we will not let go of them. We will never cease from trying once again to live them out. So in that spirit, gathered here in person and out there online, may we together speak our covenant aloud. And please rise. We gather in fellowship to speak truth with each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. May it be so.
Join in a spirit of prayer and meditation. There are moments listening to that music and others when I feel like the whole of myself is only the listening. The internal monologue or anxieties or plans quiet down. And for moments, not for all of it all the time for me, there's just the experience of being in that present, of feeling the sound not just in my ears but through my whole body, of feeling the sound in that subtle part of yourself, that emotional or heart or spirit part. Always it's difficult to say, what is it that we mean when we say join in a spirit of prayer or meditation? But sometimes it's that feeling. On this Mother's Day, we mark how beautiful and complex it can be to mother and be mothered with these words from Leah Ungiri. To those who have mothered, we thank you. To those who rejoice in the work, the role, the presence of mothering and mothers, we celebrate with you. To those who are in the thick of parenting children of any age, we appreciate you. To those who experience loss through infertility, miscarriage, adoption, running away, we mourn with you. To those who have lost their mothers, we grieve with you. To those who have endured abuse at the hands of their mothers, we see you. To those who experience pain at the marking of this day, we witness you. To those who are single moms, grandmoms, stepmoms, foster moms, adoptive moms, mentor moms, spiritual moms, we need you. And to those who are pregnant with new life, both expected and surprising, we anticipate with you. We reflect and remember with gratitude this wide spectrum of all the forms, none of them simple, none of them straightforward, that mothering takes. We'll be together in silence for a few moments. The ritual we do together is an outward shape of an inward movement. And in moving our bodies and placing stones to symbolize our joys or sorrows, we're tending and training and teaching ourselves to recognize how hope and suffering, how joy and loss are woven into daily living. We're practicing being people who recognize that beauty and tragedy are always going on. For you meeting in person, I invite you to come forward as you feel moved when the music begins. We'll start with the back half of the room and the windows, then the front. And silently to take a stone and feel its weight And let that stone stand as a token of your thankfulness or your fear or both. And then place it into the sacred earth, making a landscape of the invisible world inside of each of us, making something unseen among us seen. This week, we hold in love Barbara Mulfasey. Keep her and her family in your thoughts. Her cousin in Massachusetts is in critical condition, and Barb is there caring for her 105-year-old aunt as that unfolds. And we hold in love Barb Richards. Successful hip surgery. She's getting PT, doing well. We love you, Barb. For all our hopes and all our griefs, we hold this space with love.
It's time for us to sing together. I've brought us a new song this morning, Love Has Already Won, by Jason Shelton, who also wrote Fire of Commitment and Morning Has Come and Answering the Call of Love, which you sang last week. And the reason this song is in our community today is because Jason was actually asked to write this song or something in response to the events in Charlottesville, Virginia of several years ago. If you remember, it was a time of chaos and really stark awareness of the deeply entrenched beliefs on both sides, and ended up being an incredibly difficult time and an incredibly hard thing to bear witness to. So you might look at the title of this song and the chorus that's on the screen for you and think, gosh, that sounds a little saccharine. It sounds a little too easy that, oh, love has already won and everything's fine. But if you listen really carefully to the words, I'm going to do my best to really deliver them as clearly as I can to you. This actually is the prayer. This is what, as Jason frames it in the lyrics, that we are praying for, that we are working for that moment when we can say that this is true. So if you'll rise in body or in spirit, Carmen will play the refrain for us, and I'll sing it for you once, and then we'll get into the hymn, and I'll make sure to let you know when it is your turn to join in. Sounds like this. Love has already won. Love has already won. Just as sure as the day greets the rising sun. Love has already won. Love has already won. Be not afraid. Love has already won. In the flash of hate and terror, in the sinful lie of fear, there's a yearning deep in every soul, a longing to hear. Love has already won. Love has already won. Just as sure as the day greets the morning sun. Love has already won. Love has already won. Be not afraid. Love has already won. Will this violence break our spirits? Will this pain tear us apart? There's an answer deep in every soul. This truth in our hearts. Love has already won. Love has already won. Just as sure
In 1959, a new secondary school opened in Shenandoah County, Virginia, named after one of the most brilliant tacticians and commanders in all of U.S. military history. Not an unusual thing to name high schools for. Stonewall Jackson High School, which is fine until you remember who he fought for and why. He rebelled against this country and commanded Confederate armies in order that white enslavers continue to own human beings like property. It was no accident that a high school was named for him in Virginia in 1959. That was the height of that state's resistance to integration. And to name a school after him wasn't just history or heritage, it was a reminder of who belonged, who counted, who was good, and who wasn't. In July of 2020, a summer of pandemic and protest reminded the conscience of this country that it is a profound erasure of our actual history to give a place of honor to a man who murdered on behalf of enslavers. Not heritage, hate. And so in July of 2020, the school board renamed it Mountain View High School. Not an inspiring name, but a better one. This week, less than 4 years later, the new school board voted to change it back. And as one of the school board members said, explaining his vote, when you read about this man, Stonewall Jackson, when you read about who he was and what he stood for, his character, his loyalty, his leadership, how godly a man he was, those standards that he had were much higher than any leadership of the school system in 2020. And there is, in that statement, something at work that I think is worse than just error, and it's worse even than, I don't know if it's worse, but it's not as simple as just hate. For that board member, for the 4 out of 5 who voted for this, for the people who elected them on this issue, reason and the fact of what happened had been displaced by a belief in a mythic past, a time when things were better and more pure, more wholesome, more right than they are today. Once, according to this mindset, things were good and order was as it should be, and today we live in a fallen world from that, but it can be great again. Jason Stanley, in his brilliant and accessible book, How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them, describes fascism not in terms of a political party or a set of governing principles. It's not an economic modality. It's not a method for interpreting the law. It is a technique for gaining power. It's a rhetoric. It's a way of speaking and a set of assumptions behind that way of speaking. And because its power comes in part from the way that it shapes common sense notions of what is ordinary and right in our world, I'm going to attempt to walk you through Stanley's 10 attributes of fascism as if they were common sense. I'm going to attempt not to say this dripping with sarcasm. Here we go. Once we were great. And now we aren't because they took that away from us. And people won't tell you the truth about that reality. Teachers and medias and intellectuals won't tell you the truth, but you can feel it. You know that this is true. The fact is that when things were good, there was a hierarchy to the world with good people on top And you're one of those good people. And you should be on top. But they took that from you. They took that from you, and then they turned upside down the whole world of what's right and wrong. They talk about law and order being for equality and justice, but that can't be true because they have perverted the whole meaning of equality and justice. The real meaning of order is for the right people to be in charge, for the right people to safeguard our women and children. I guess this part is just for the men in the room. I'm trying to keep the sarcasm out. Law and order is there to safeguard the threat to our families, the threat to women and children who want to take away what is good and natural and pure. They call it equality, but what they mean is taking away motherhood and your children. Because there are good people in the world and there are bad people in the world. There is us and there is them. Fascism isn't a political party or a platform. It's a technique to gain power. It is a rhetoric, a way of speaking, a set of assumptions behind what's said. It's not a political party, it's a political style. And the point of getting familiar with this, the point of listening for this, of understanding the twists and turns of this, is not just to see it. Identifying fascist speech and thought is not like identifying a bird in the wild. Oh, look, I haven't seen that. There it goes. That's not it. Identifying this illiberal way of being in the world is to become aware of it as a tactic in order to explicitly counter it and work against it. Now, there's no argument you win by saying you're a fascist. There's no one who you're going to say that to. Oh my gosh, I was just waiting for someone to explain what was going on inside me. I won't be. And that is not a thing that happens. But when someone tells a story of a mythic past in which we were on top and they were in their rightful place, you can notice that and challenge it and say something as simple as, I don't believe that. It's hard to undo that story of the past, that simple story, because in fact, the past is messy and complicated and not immediately obvious. And no one is all good or all bad then or now. In the past, our ancestors had ideals we share. All men are created equal, and also lived in horrific ways. Jefferson owned human beings while writing that. There's not a simple story that encompasses both of those things, but the mythic past is simple because it's not really about the facts of the past. It's about a set of feelings that we have in the present, that we are the right ones, the pure ones. We are the ones who stand for character and loyalty and leadership and godliness, just like Stonewall Jackson. The mythic past, where the great and the dominant group ruled over the others, is the starting point for fascisms around the world. It's a story in the past about how things are supposed to be in the future, how things will become again once you belong and join in and are a part of and are restored to your rightful place. That is the story people are pledging allegiance to when they hang Confederate flags in front of their homes here in Boulder County. I've seen them. This is the story that Christian nationalists in Colorado mean when they say Christianity and nationalism. Once things were right. White men ruled over women and everyone, and things were good. And surely you want to go back to things being good. This is at the heart of the backlash to critical race theory, which in its simplest possible version is the proposition that the story of Black Americans should be told as part of the story of America. The mythic past is at the heart of resistance that dismantles diversity, equality, and inclusion initiatives. Those perspectives don't belong among us. Those perspectives, those people challenge the myth of the glorious past. They must not be true. That the facts disagree with belief merely demonstrates the facts are wrong. Fascist politics, writes Stanley, makes room for the study of myth as fact. And in that ideology, the function of the education system is to glorify the mythic past, to elevate the achievements of members of the nation and obscure the perspectives and the histories of the people who don't belong. Obscuring the perspectives of the people who don't belong is why Florida banned teachers from talking about sexual orientation and gender identity. A lesbian kindergarten teacher can't, under the law, clearly talk about her relationship with her wife. A straight second grade teacher can't unambiguously, under the law, talk about their student with two dads. But to the fascist worldview, the fact and reality of those diverse experiences isn't true because those don't count, those don't matter. There is an us and a them. And that's not because it's a conspiracy. That's not because it's a political project. It's because there is a deeply held belief that this really is how the world works. Stanley says part of what fascist politics does is get people to disassociate from reality. You get them to sign on to this fantasy version of reality, usually a nationalist narrative about the decline of the country and the need for a strong leader to return it to greatness. And from then on, their anchor isn't the world around them anymore. All politics uses propaganda. At its simplest, that word just means persuasion. But to the fascist style, propaganda is used in service, it's language used in service of dividing the pure us from the impure them. Take corruption. Corruption in that style is about the corruption of purity, not the corruption of the law. So officially, the fascist politician denunciation of corruption sounds like a denunciation of political corruption. But the talk, that speech, that conversation is instead intended to evoke corruption in the sense of usurpations of the traditional order. What's gone wrong is not that the law has been violated, but the purity of us has been violated. You don't need the law to tell you that. You know this in you. This is why Stonewall Jackson's standards were so much higher than the 2020 school board. To say that renaming schools after Confederate generals is a fascistic act of inventing a mythic past is not to say, and this is tricky, nuance is hard these days, it feels, is not to say that the school board or the voters are fascist or that there's some conspiracy in that county to impose fascist rules. Fascism, it's not like a switch that flips. It's not a binary. It's not a state of being and you are or you aren't. It's a style. It's a way of thinking and speaking and shaping a common sense understanding of the world. It doesn't need to be a secret intentional conspiracy towards power. It can be honestly believed as a worldview. It's a story that people belong to, Once upon a time, things were as they should be. And they can be again, and you can be part of that. It's an ideology. All people are not equal. There is a natural order of importance to the world. And that's why the right of a woman to control her own body is not as important as the right of a man to control her body. That's why, speaking of the rights of queer people to equal protection under the law, surely can't mean the same thing as equal protection for straight people, who are naturally more important. This is why fascism is a path to power. It's a hierarchy of worth that you once had but was taken away, and I will give it back to you, says that leader. Once you believe that you matter most and they have taken that away, once that's the cornerstone, you don't need to listen to anything anymore. The intellectuals are lying to you. The history is rewritten. It's your leader who's telling you the truth. And again, arguing over whether someone is or isn't a fascist misses the point. This is a method of communication that appeals to a style of believing. And our work this year especially is to notice it and name it, which can be as simple as saying, I don't agree. This is maybe not the usual Mother's Day sermon. Though this is what my mom raised me to talk about. It's maybe not a usual Mother's Day sermon, but the undoing of a them and an us is deep in the bones of our religious tradition. Julia Ward Howe, abolitionist and suffragette, spoke to the 1893 World Parliament of Religion. She did it in good Unitarian fashion. She said, I need not stand here to repeat any definition of what religion is. I think you will all say that it is aspiration, the pursuit of the divine in the human. But I think nothing is religion which puts one individual absolutely above others. And surely nothing is religion which puts one sex above others. And any religion which will sacrifice a certain set of human beings for the enjoyment or aggrandizement or advantage of another is no religion. Any religion which sacrifices women to the brutality of men is no religion. The fascist style of power and politics emerges and reemerges in every generation like cyclical broods of cicadas. Underground for years. It's not that they're not there, you just don't see them. They don't burst from nowhere and return to nothing. They're always here, and resistance meets that in every generation. Mother's Day, as it's celebrated today, has roots in the early 20th century as an affirmation and celebration of the domestic role of women, but its roots go further back than that, into the 1870s. Its roots are not in the celebration of traditional wives, subservient helpmates to men whose job is to protect her from a world she is incapable of facing. Its roots in the 1870s are Julia Ward Howe, writing a Mother's Day proclamation for peace. And she says this, she says, arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have questions answered by irrelevant agencies. our husbands will not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity and mercy and patience. From the voice of a devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, the sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. Which is to say, in every line, a century and a half ago, let us not be content to be lied to. Let us not be content to be us, better than them. Let us not believe when we're told that that's just the common sense understanding of how things really are. Let's name it and undo it. The past, like the future, is for every one of us. Amen.
Please rise in body or in spirit. Our song is number 146 in the gray hymnal, Soon the Day Will Arrive. Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreamed, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and our vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope, not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
This month's offering will be shared with the Boulder Area Sanctuary and Immigration Coalition, BASIC. I'd like to ask some very special people to join me here on the chancel. For some of you that have joined us in the last year or so, you might not know these folks. This is Ingrid Encalada and her son, Bryant Moya. And they have a little bit to say to you.
Buenas tardes. Pues soy Ingrid Encalada. Estoy muy agradecida por estar aquí presente. I want to say something about my life. So, still living in Boulder with my 3 kids. And after my 3 surgeries, still recovering, but I'm feeling much better. So my son, he's going to little bit explain about my case.
So my mom lived in Sanctuary starting in 2016 with me and my brother, and my sister, my daughter, my mom's daughter, was born in this sanctuary in 2019. I have had to move to different churches and have lived in sanctuary in Fort Collins, Denver, and Boulder. In 2019, I received a pardon from Governor Jared Polis, which cleared a major obstacle for my path to citizenship. However, with the immigration policies of the United States as they are now, my mom has no path to citizenship that does not separate me from my children. There is a bill called H.R. 1511, which would update the registry law and provide a path. You can talk to your Congress or governor about that to help out. My mom received a stay of removal in 2021, which prevented her deportation for 1 year. And she applied for a work permit, but she's had nothing new in her case because of that. Immigration can't do anything about it, so I'm stuck in a limbo. We want an immigration reform. About a month ago, my documentary of If I Could Stay streamed in Fort Collins back when I lived in UUCV here. The documentary was very emotional, seeing a bunch of familiar faces, and I really love seeing it. And I love seeing all the people who fought with me on the path and my freedom and others. And I can't wait to bring it to Boulder and present it to all of you. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Dile que tenemos la artesanía. Estamos aquí.
My mom also has a business called Ingrid Artesanías, and it allows her to sell her items from her native Peru, as well as some items from Mexico. I also do some cleaning and house and pet setting. You can call me for a free estimate. And thank you.
Feliz Día de la Madre.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
It's because of families like this that BASIC was created. I invite you to give as generously as you're able. For those online, you can use the QR code or find a link in the video. For those here in person, you can scan the QR code or make a donation as the ushers pass the baskets. May our gifts continue to be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love into the Boulder community. Thank you.
To see and face the fascist style is not to face just politics, but a clash of values. To say there's an us and there's a them, and we're better, that's not what we're here to do. That's not what we're working to remember. Julia Wardhouse says, any religion which will sacrifice a certain set of human beings for the enjoyment or aggrandizement or advantage of another is no religion. It is a thing which may be allowed, but it is against true religion. In every generation, resistance arises, vigilant and steady, noticing what's going on and naming that. May that be our work to do. We rise in body or spirit. Let's end in song.